lot of great questions, and that's why we're having part two. So if you're watching us live, thanks for being here. If you're on Facebook, thanks for being here. If you joined in on Zoom, just thank you all around. I'm so grateful to be able to provide some information in this program, but also at the work that I do at the center when I meet with individuals one-on-one, and then also do a lot of great programs. So always keep an eye out on the calendar or subscribe to our social media, because that's how I stay updated on all of the great events that we have, especially the nutrition programs. Although I'm usually told ahead of time what I need to do. But it's great to be here. And if you missed part one of this month's Ask the Dietitian, just check out our YouTube channel. It's recorded there for you. If this is your first time ever watching Ask the Dietitian and you're like, wait, this is a monthly recurring program, have no fear. All of the Ask the Dietitians are on our YouTube channel, along with all of the other great recordings of the wonderful programs that we do here. So thanks for being here. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to pick up where we left off on the questions that our participants asked for the month of May. And just a reminder for those of you, or a little incentive as well, if you register for programs, especially my programs, you automatically get the content. So you will have the opportunity to see the slides. Very often I share additional resources or recipes that help sort of make this information more practical and doable, and therefore having more of an impact in your cancer protective lifestyle. So thanks again, and I will share my screen, and Lisa will just troubleshoot if there's ever any issues. But we're going to get going and pick up on those questions. So this month's Ask the Dietitian was all about like hydration, and also, you know, like functional fluids and beverages. And are there, besides the hydrating effects, are there other beverage choices that we can make that might impart some other health benefits? And no surprise here, our participants asked some amazing questions. So we're going to pick up on where we left off. And I love when questions are asked that really challenge what I think I know, or if I don't know anything. So then I do my homework, and I hope to provide some meaningful information for you today, as always. Okay, so I was asked this question: your thoughts about herbal teas, including mushroom tea or coffee, as well as fermented beverages like kefir and kombucha. So I already answered some questions about kombucha in part one, so you'll have to refer to that if you missed that on the YouTube channel. So we're going to pick up on herbal tea. So despite the name, herbal tea is actually not tea. Did you know that? They typically contain the leaves or the leaf buds of tea plants. That's what true teas contain. Okay, but herbal teas do not. They're known as tisanes, which are blends or infusions of dried fruit, flowers, spices, or herbs in water. So there's a distinction there, and I just wanted to share that with you. Herbal teas, in my opinion, may be a vehicle to supply your or my or our diet with foods that we otherwise might not regularly eat. So for example, I think of things like ginger or peppermint or chamomile or hibiscus, and there's a lot of other options to consider. I don't regularly consume those herbs, right? So I think it might be an opportunity, or beyond, right? So ginger is not an herb, but beyond that. So if you're looking for, maybe you like those flavors and an herbal tea is a way to consume it, or maybe you're looking for some of the medicinal properties that they might offer you, and an herbal tea is a way to consume it. I think that's an important consideration if you're thinking about leveraging the benefit of herbal teas. So as I shared, some of them have functional properties. So when we think of ginger tea, this is certainly soothing, right, to our stomach. And we certainly recommend ginger and forms of ginger during active treatment and even beyond. If someone's struggling with something like nausea, ginger is known to be a really helpful remedy for that. Certainly chamomile has this known relaxing and calming effect. So if you're looking to sort of leverage that as part of your sleep routine or your wind down routine before getting adequate rest, I think it's a great opportunity to consider some of these herbal teas. So those are my thoughts on that. So now we're going to move to mushroom tea and coffee. So mushroom tea and mushroom coffee, it's typically made from medicinal mushrooms rather than the culinary mushrooms that we typically see or eat from the grocery store. So common varieties that are used in mushroom tea and coffee include a mix, typically of chaga, lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, king trumpet, and turkey tail. Now, I hardly ever see those mushrooms in my grocery store. So again, another sort of like the herbal tea is another opportunity to potentially consume some of these choices in food form, right? Because as a dietitian, I prefer my nutrition or compounds in certain foods from food or beverages rather than from a supplement. They're all harvested, dried, and added to the coffee and tea to make it. Are they good for us? I think that's a great question. We do know that medicinal mushrooms, like the ones listed on the slide, they all have some data. Now, the data is preclinical. So, what that means, it's not really very high quality evidence. But there is some data that exists that it suggests that they support our immune system, they work like antioxidants, and they may support our metabolism. When we see preclinical data, that doesn't include in vivo data, or typically in vivo meaning human studies. It's interesting information. We know that there's a mechanism behind their impact. However, we just don't see it necessarily in human form yet, right? But good to know, right, that there's all these potential benefits. There isn't any data, however, about mushroom tea and coffee specifically. So when they look at these in the preclinical data, they tend to look at the mushroom specifically and they extract the compounds of interest to study their impact in terms of how they interact with our systems. But they haven't yet looked at mushroom tea or mushroom coffee. So that's just an aside so that you know that. So if you like mushroom tea and coffee and mushroom coffee, I say go for it. Same goes for herbal teas. They're sort of like, as I shared, my thoughts are like this is an opportunity to potentially get something into your diet that might benefit you on some level that you otherwise would not get because you're not having those things. The marketing of them and our influencers, as I like to put it, that often talk about these types of things, they 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 sort of give misleading information, right? Well, not sort of, they do. They mislead us and they sort of exaggerate any potential benefits that we currently know about. So I shared with you, we don't have any data about mushroom tea or mushroom coffee. So if you see an influencer or a particular brand marketing it in a way that it's like going to boost your immune system, we want to just give pause and apply a healthy skepticism to that because maybe on some level, but it's not really as exaggerated as they're making it seem. Okay. And there's many other ways, in my opinion, and in my understanding, there's many other ways that we can support our health and especially our immune system. And just drinking a coffee tea or a mushroom coffee or mushroom tea isn't going to necessarily do it all for us, right? So eating mushrooms are likely just as, if not more, arguably beneficial to a total diet. So keep that in mind too. And I think, as it relates to nutrition and our food choices, sometimes our lesser known or our less popular things like black pepper or parsley or black tea or something like the white button mushroom, they don't get a lot of attention, right, from marketers or from influencers, but they are all valuable in their own right. And I think they deserve just as much attention. And I wish someone would market them because they are valuable and there's data to support their benefits to our health as well. So I don't want you to think there's like a hierarchy and that reishi mushroom is so much better than white button mushroom when that's not necessarily the case. They're just different, right? So we want to think about variety and think about choices in terms of approaching a total diet and having that impact our total health. Regular coffee and true teas like green, white, black, and oolong tea, they do have data that suggests benefits and more data than the preclinical data about mushrooms. So they contain what we call polyphenols, which are special phytochemicals, and they exert anti-inflammatory properties. And again, here we see green, white, black, oolong. You might be thinking, I need to do green tea. I need to do matcha green tea, right? But good old black tea, if you enjoy that, has a significant amount of polyphenols and will add or enhance your cancer protective plan. Okay. Hopefully that helps answer that question. Now, next one, drinks that add vitamin B12 Are they legit? They claim that they energize us. So is that really the case? I love this line of questions. You see here, like we're going in a certain direction here with these questions. All right, so vitamin B12. I just want you to know a little bit more about vitamin B12. So let's get to know it. It's a water-soluble vitamin. It's naturally present in foods from animal sources. Sometimes it's added to foods. So a food might be fortified with it, and that it's a synthetic form of it, right? So it might be, and it's also available as a dietary supplement, by the way. It has important responsibilities. So the thing here is we need to eat just the right amount. We don't want too little. We don't want too much. We don't want to assume that something, if something's good for us, then a lot of it is really good for us. With our vitamins and minerals, and also with a lot of other things in the world of nutrition, having the right amount is the key. It's not like we need to overdo it in order to get the benefits. Having the right amount will give us our benefits. Certainly the case for vitamins and minerals. So what vitamin B12 does is it keeps our body's blood and nerve cells healthy. It helps make DNA and has a lot of other responsibilities, but those kind of top the list. Most of us here in the United States, we are getting plenty of vitamin B12 from the food that we eat. And technically, according to surveys, deficiencies of B12 are rare. Okay, good to know. Some people, however, may not be absorbing vitamin B12 efficiently. So who would those people be? It's anyone who might have or might be on a stomach acid reducing medication or something over the counter, because we start to break down or break apart, we call it cleave B12 in our stomach. And it requires acid in order to do that. And if someone's taking something that's suppressing acid or acid production in their stomach, they might be less efficient at cleaving apart the B12 so that it can get absorbed lower in our gut. People with something called atrophic gastritis or pernicious anemia are likely not absorbing B12 efficiently. And then also anyone who has had a stomach or intestinal surgery. That's a lot of what I do in clinic is I assess for that after someone's had surgery. And also anyone with a history of celiac or Crohn's disease, they have been shown to potentially have lower levels of vitamin B12 because their body just isn't necessarily as efficient as it once was because of that disease process is inhibiting their absorption. They might be eating plenty of it, but they just might not be absorbing it as well. And then also, you may have heard this, anyone who consumes a vegan diet for any reason, they may not be eating enough in their diet because most of our B12 comes from animal foods. So part of my work clinically as a dietitian and when I'm counseling individuals is if someone is consuming a vegan diet, we do discuss adequate levels and maybe measure their B12 levels to ensure that they're getting enough. So a little bit more about B12. Our body stores 1,000 up to 2,000 times as much B12 as we eat in a typical day. This is what's so fascinating to me about the human body. So we tend to have these great storage pools, as we call them, for a lot of our nutrients, and vitamins and minerals are a good example. So we store it. We can tap into it if we need it. So let's say we go a week without eating well because we're not feeling great or we're hospitalized and we have to be without food for some time. It's good to know that we have all of this storage available so our body can tap into it if it needs it. Now, high doses of B12 do not appear to be harmful. So sometimes people, for whatever reason, maybe they were taking something high, like a high dose of a supplement, or they falsely assume they needed a lot for some reason. And I certainly have encountered some of these people. This happens, right? And so what most of our understanding is that it doesn't appear to be harmful when that happens. So there are upper limits that we do advise people do not overconsume, because when we consume too much of a vitamin or mineral, very often that competes with another vitamin or mineral. So that can cause some consequences that we're looking to avoid if possible. But so far as of now, what we know is that if we take a lot of B12, it doesn't seem to hurt us. So good to know, but I wouldn't advise it. Now, to get to the answer to that question, does it give us energy? What a great question, right? Does it energize us? So again, despite what the marketers or the influencers want us to believe, it doesn't directly give us energy. That's sort of an indirect way of working, right? So directly, if we take B12, are we expecting to have reduced fatigue or more energy? No, that's not what's going to do it. One of the responsibilities that B12 has is to help us metabolize carbohydrates. Guess what carbohydrates do? Gives us energy. So in a sense, we get energy from the carbohydrates we eat. That's what gives us fuel. That's one of the best fuel sources in our diet is our carbohydrates, especially high quality carbohydrates. And so if B12 is responsible to help us harness the energy from a carbohydrate because it's helping us to metabolize it, then that's where they get away with making that claim that it gives us energy. But what if we're eating low or no carb diet and taking a ton of B12? It's still not going to give us energy, right? So it's really indirectly that they're kind of getting around using that claim that it's going to energize us. Thanks in part to B12, it helps us to convert food into usable energy, but it's actually the carbohydrates that we have to thank for energy. And I would say, besides nutrition, I think one of the best energizing things we could possibly do for ourselves is to get some exercise or physical activity or move our bodies. That's what we know gives us some energy or reduces fatigue. Best known intervention for fatigue reduction is exercise. So, a little bit more about B12. It does not energize us. To kind of like finalize the answer to that question, it does not energize us. So the drink that might have it added to it, maybe it's good for other reasons or not good for other reasons, but drinking it for the B12, I don't think is a good enough reason to drink it. Okay. Next question. I love that someone asked us best water filtration systems to use, and what about the countertop ones? Are they like the best? So water filtration. What I would, and I learned this a few years ago, what I would recommend is that if you haven't already received it, which you should, contact your local water supplier and ask for annual water quality report. Sometimes it's called a consumer confidence report. It should come once a year. I know where I live in my home, I get it in October and I look at it and it's like a booklet. It's probably like a good 5-6 pages that I read through. And it's transparent. It lets us know and lets my household know what's in the water that we're using. So we're all entitled to get that, right? So this report lists the levels of contaminants that have been detected in the water, and it shows how these levels compare with our EPA's drinking water standard. So I will share every time I look at it in October, I'm confident. It's more reassurance that we're okay. We're not picking up on any contaminants. It's falling far below any standard that's been set. Now, if your water does come from a household well, the EPA recommends that you have annual water testing for nitrates as well as coliform bacteria. I grew up in a household with well water, and I haven't asked my parents yet because they still live in that same house if they test it annually, but I think that's a great idea. In addition, we can also check our local health department or local water systems that use groundwater for information about contaminants of concern in our area, if that's something that is sort of on your mind or you'd like to know more about. This, we all are afforded access to this information. So all we have to do is just ask. Now, what about water filtration? So different units remove different contaminants or classes of contaminants from the water. For most of them, if not all, a point of use device, and I'm going to explain this in a moment, is effective enough. It's all we need to use in order to treat the water that we consume. But we do want to know that some contaminants such as radon, disinfection byproducts, some organic chemicals, they can turn into gases and they may pose a risk when inhaled. So if we're showering, that's a way that it might potentially get into our water that way. I don't know the answer to that. So again, I think that's just contacting your local health department or your local water supplier to ask, is this something that I need to be concerned about? Or can I have access to information about the tests that you're doing to learn about that for myself? Point of use devices are the very popular, I would say like 15 years ago, the water pitchers, and some people still use them today, but also distillers. and reverse osmosis units. So in my household, we have a countertop distiller. And it uses carbon filters, and that's what helps remove some additional contaminants. They vary in cost, and they're most effective at reducing lead as well as other contaminants. Okay, so you sort of get to choose based on your situation and what you have at home and what you feel like you need to remove, if at all. So again, use what you need based on your local water tests. Certification by independent entity adds extra reassurance that the filter works in the way it is claimed to. I learned this recently. So there's 3 organizations that do that, and they're accredited by the American National Standards Institute. They certify units using ANSI or NSF standards. So that's what we're kind of looking for. So NSF International, Underwriters Laboratory, and Water Quality Association. If we also look towards, I didn't include links to these resources, but if you wanted to search further, you can also look at those organizations, because they are sort of the ones out there. They're the third-party testers. They're the ones that, again, are giving us more information to help us understand what's best for us given our situation. Now, filters, I think this is really important to point out, filters are only effective if they're maintained, right? So it's not like we just put in a system and then leave it for the rest of our lives. We want to maintain it. So we got to check the manufacturer's instructions and definitely stay up to date on maintaining our water filters. Okay. Now, some people I work with, they might use 2 systems. Like they might have something on their countertop and then also use a water pitcher. It's really up to you, I think. I wouldn't want you to worry unnecessarily. So I think having access to any records or annual reports can be a very helpful way to reassure yourself that you're doing the right things to keep your drinking water safe. Okay. Next question. What is the best way to get a nutrient, either liquid or solid? I love this question too. I was like, how do I answer this one? This is a good one. So I'm just going to compare them head to head. Okay, and hopefully you'll have an answer by the end. All right, so our solids. Here's what happens when we eat solid food. Fiber, especially the fiber that's in plant foods, is very important for us. We also don't eat enough fiber, Americans. So I always say I have job security because 6% of us are eating recommended amounts of fiber. But fiber is really important for digestion and for our health. But what happens is fiber potentially interferes with our ability to completely absorb 100% of all the nutrition that's in the food. So if a high fiber food also has other nutrients, we don't necessarily get all of them. Do I worry about that? Absolutely not. There's no reason to worry about that, because chances are if we're eating those plant foods and a wide array of them, we're going to get all the nutrients that we need. And having the fiber in it isn't a reason not to eat it, because it has so many nutrients that a little bit of fiber is not going to stop us from getting all of it, right? We still get some. Solids, in terms of our foods, they tend to contain a greater variety of nutrients. And I think that's important to point out too. So as soon as we take a solid food and liquefy it, it loses things. And nutrients are part of that package. And chewing, when we chew food, it stimulates digestion, which is really good for us, right? We need that. And that helps us to absorb nutrition, which is so fascinating to me, right? There's this, like, our bodies are designed in a way to work in our favor, right? So there's maximum digestion and maximum absorption of the nutrients in our food. Now, liquids, on the other hand, liquids don't have fiber, typically, very, very low amounts. And again, this is something we need to eat more of, so I want you to keep that in mind. Liquids are crucial for hydration. That's a little bit of what we've been talking about today, and in part 1, especially in part 1. And we absorb water and electrolytes more efficiently in liquid form. That we know, right? Because it's pretty obvious, right? If it's liquid form, it's going to be easier for us to digest. By the time we chew our solid foods and then digest it, it sort of turns into liquids anyway. Not as liquid as liquids, but sort of, right? But we do absorb water and electrolytes more efficiently in liquid form. That's why if someone's dehydrated or it is at risk for dehydration, we recommend fluids, right? And we might recommend fluids with some electrolytes, as I discussed in part 1. So anyone with a digestive issue may absorb nutrients in liquids better. So to answer this question most directly, which one's better? So this is a conditional response. If you have a digestive issue, and what does that even mean? It's too much to go into today. So if you have concerns and maybe you're not digesting your solid food very well for some reason, work with your healthcare provider, ask for a referral to a dietitian to see, are you getting all the nutrients that you require? And sometimes that's the situation for some people I work with. Maybe they've had a pretty significant digestive surgery, or for some reason have disease in their digestive system. So we may talk about that and monitor. And sometimes if they're unable to digest or absorb some nutrients, we talk about supplementation. But all of that is sort of done in a medical arena. So it's important to think about that as I answer this question for you. Okay. Next question. We're almost at the end. What additional benefits does lemon water have? And what about adding ginger to that? And should it be peeled or not? Does cucumber water give the same benefits? Oh, great questions. Hard to answer though. So lemon and cucumber water. I would say, like right off the top of my head, I think like the amount that you add matters, right? So if it's like sometimes what I do, a little squeeze of lemon, probably insignificant. It's giving me some flavor, but am I getting any nutrition out of it? A tiny amount? Am I getting any kind of sensational claims that the marketers or influencers want us to think? No, it's so insignificant. It's a small amount. But I will say that half of a lemon is enough. Now that's a lot of juice if you ask me. That's easily, I think one lemon gives us 3 tablespoons. I'd have to do the conversion. But it's a good amount of lemon juice. That will give us a good amount of vitamin C. So if you're looking to add some vitamin C and some other compounds that are in lemon, especially the peel as well, like if you want to zest the peel and put that into your water, that will give you some antioxidants, which is, a nice way of thinking about it, but it seems like it's going to take a lot of juice. Claims that lemon water promote weight loss or it detoxifies us, it balances our pH levels. That's so untrue, by the way. I could do a whole Ask the Dietitian on pH. Those are all exaggerated. They're not based on any amount of evidence. If you find in your life or in your history of eating and drinking that when you had lemon water, you felt better or you were able to manage your weight in a way that worked for you, cool. I would say do it, but don't necessarily fall for the claims that are being made about it. Okay. Citric acid in lemon may lead to erosion of tooth enamel. So here's an example of someone who is like all or nothing. And here's lemon water is good. And they do a ton of lemon in their water. We want to recognize how that may impact other systems, right? And it is quite acidic. So we want to think about that as it relates to our enamel. Otherwise I would say when life gives you lemons and you want to drink lemon water, happy drinking to you. Cucumber, very similarly. What we know about cucumber is that it has like flavor. Cucumber itself is very high water content. So it hydrates. So when we eat cucumber, we're actually benefiting our hydration levels, right? But it has such a small amount of vitamins and minerals. There's fiber when we eat the cucumber. So that's something to keep in mind. But it has such small amounts of vitamins and minerals that it's really kind of insignificant. So just like lemon water, it's sort of the same. Any claims that you might see out there, like especially if it's detoxification, if your kidneys and your liver is working well, you don't need to detoxify. You're okay. All right, just stay hydrated and eat your fiber. That's the gist of detoxification. All right, now on to ginger, to peel or not to peel. Love this. So there is no need for us to peel our ginger unless the skin or the peel appears damaged or is like very old looking. I guess if it's like kind of shriveled and dry, or tough looking. So it's good to know. Or if you just don't prefer it, aesthetically speaking. Or if you're in the kitchen and you're using ginger and you're not sure and you're like, I'm going to peel this, go for it. Because if you are in the kitchen and working with ginger, I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job. The peel of ginger itself, it is edible and it does contain some extra nutrition that's not necessarily inside the ginger, right? So there's some extra antioxidants. There's certainly some fiber. We find some vitamin C in the peel, and there's also some minerals and other metabolites, probably some phytochemicals that are antimicrobial, have anti-inflammatory properties, and may possess anti-cancer properties. Really good to know. So if you decide not to peel, what I would recommend is just to scrub the outside very well. And all it takes is water and a produce brush, and then trim off any parts that don't look like they should be consumed, right? So especially those browned parts, I would just trim them off. And then have fun with your ginger. You don't have to peel it if you don't want to. But if you peel it and you consume the ginger, you're going to benefit. You'll get nutritional benefits from it. Okay, I believe this is the last question. Looking for a no caffeine, no sugar, healthful drink that I can buy at the grocery store. I love questions like this because it's so much more practical. Like I'm going to give you names, which is fun. But this is not an easy answer. No caffeine and no sugar. Have you looked at the beverage choices we have available to us? There's lots of sugar in them, and other things, right? So, I have a list. All right, and I'm going to share it now. So I'm naming names here, but hopefully when you get these slides or you can take a screenshot of this might help you to see some options that are out there. Not all of these are no sugar. Like I think the apple cider vinegar from Trader Joe's, which is delicious, by the way. I think it has like a touch of sweet, but it's from natural sources. It's not added sugar. Um, I love the idea of iced tea, especially this year. I mean, this time of year. Today, it's certainly warm enough out, and that's an herbal tea. So typically, herbal teas don't tend to have caffeine, but you can read labels, and that particular product does not. But blueberry lavender sounds delicious to me. Zevia is a caffeine-free cola. I've never tried it, but it might be something fun for you to try. Splendrift is very popular. Waterloo is very popular. This Zanzo. I did not see until recently, but it's sort of like really interesting flavors. So they have things like yuzu or calamansi, which is like a lime. They have lychee, they have mango. So they have really interesting flavors that really might kind of zhuzh up what you're enjoying. And it's a fizz, right? So it's a sparkling water with these additional flavors that are added to it, and all low sugar, no sugar, and like natural, really great choices. Stir is something that's sort of like you probably have seen things that have like the drops that you put into water. I really like Stir as a product because of the ingredients that they choose to put in it. So if you can find it, you might enjoy that. Really delicious flavors here, as you see. And I think, like, again, we're coming to that time of year where some of these things are going to really entice your palate. Okay, so hopefully I gave you some answers on that one. Just want to share some resources and some additional um, considerations if you're looking to apply again some of this information into your lifestyle. Eatright.org, that's the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. That's like my parent organization. I'm a member. So this helps us to understand how much water that we need. So everyone's different. Now you can ask me directly, and when you work with me directly, I can tell you that answer. But sometimes people are asking, like, do we need 64 ounces a day? Like, what's the right number? What's the magical sweet spot for us? So you can check that out and see for yourself. Now, infused water was like all the rage. And I believe I want it to still be all the rage because I just love the idea of anytime that we're cooking, anytime we're doing something for ourselves in the kitchen, it's going to automatically be better for us, right? We get to decide. It's empowering. So it's like, it just supports every single piece of our being, right, when we're in the kitchen. And so you might like Forks Over Knives as a website at whole. There's lots of great recipes on their website, but they also have a really great list of infused water combos. So not just fruit, but also some herb combinations mixed in there, like cucumber and mint is really yummy. So you might find something that really helps you like find some inspiration there. And then if you're concerned at all about the sugar in your drinks, which if you are, consult with me because I'd love to help you reduce them because sugary beverages, as it turns out, seem like they're probably something in our diet that we really want to minimize. But the CDC has a great website about rethinking our drinks, and especially as it relates to sugary beverages. Okay, so you might like that as well. Now, I always promise recipes. So I thought, I was thinking hydration. I was thinking ginger and lemon and cucumber, since those questions were asked. But then also some really hydrating vegetables that we can put on the grill in a way that's going to also enhance hydration. So if you're curious about that, you can take a look at those recipes. And then I hope you can join us next month. It's only a few weeks away. So we're going to be presenting our Ask the Dietitian, and our topic is eating on a budget, which might be relevant for you. And we'll meet at our regular scheduled time, the first Friday of the month at 1 o'clock. So thank you for joining me. I'm going to stop my share here and
I have
say
two
hello to
questions for you,
everybody.
Lori.
Okay,
Okay, first question. Can Claritin inhibit B12 absorption?
good question. I will get back to you. I don't believe so, but I'll get back to you. A pharmacist also is a great person to ask about over-the-counter products and medications, by the way. Like if your healthcare provider isn't necessarily giving you the answer you're looking for, I think a pharmacist also is very helpful to have on your team. But I will check that one because it's not, to my knowledge, does it inhibit absorption. So I'll double check.
Okay, and then last question. Um, is what are your thoughts on adding mushroom powder into regular coffee?
Yeah, I think that's I never thought to do that, and I think that's a great idea. I love coffee, so I drink coffee. But mushroom powder, I think that's a really interesting idea, and it would add like just a different note of flavor, and probably some more of those medicinal mushrooms that I don't otherwise eat. So I would endorse that. I think that's an interesting idea.
All right, that's it. That's a wrap, Lori.
All right, thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.